Let's unpack this further now with Simon Mabon, who's a professor of international politics at Lancaster University. He joins us now live. Welcome to the News Hour. Simon, how critical is this meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump? And why do you think he is the first foreign leader to visit the White House, of course, with an arrest warrant by the ICC? Let's not forget.
Yeah, well, it's critical. It's as critical as these meetings always are or always seem to be. We've been having these conversations ever since October the 7th last year. 2023, I should say. And every single meeting seems to be critical. Every single meeting seems to be about trying to de-escalate and prevent a further catastrophic level of human suffering. And this one is no different. I think the one point that is different, however, is that we are in the midst of a ceasefire. It's just as to whether this agreement and this discussion between Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu can actually ensure that the ceasefire continues. But from all of the different noises that we're hearing, all of your different reports, different packages, there's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of people with their own agendas, their own issues, their own aspirations that seem set on derailing it. As for why it's an important visit, well, we know that there is a special relationship between Israel and the United States. There is a strong domestic lobby in the US that all American presidents are working closely with. So
and Simon,
I think it's an obvious thing.
And just to drill down on that, what do you think at this point Donald Trump wants from Benjamin Netanyahu, and how much of a priority are the Abraham Accords? Would you say it is the Nobel Peace Prize that is driving Trump's motivation?
Well, it's difficult to predict anything with Mr. Trump, as history has shown. But we know that he is somewhat envious of his predecessor, or the first term's predecessor, Barack Obama's Peace Prize, and I'm sure that he would like one as well. So there is that, of course, there is that need to placate an ego. But he's also said, his recent campaign, was predicated on this idea of being the peacemaker, of putting an end to conflict, be it in Ukraine or in Gaza. So there's that sense that perhaps he's hung a lot of capital, political capital, on ending these things. But then there's also the reason, I guess there's a lot of different reasons as to why that capital has been invested, whether it is for a peace prize, whether it's economic opportunities, whether it's political opportunities for the US or for him. But we also know that the relationship between Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump has not always been positive. And Mr. Trump has accused Israel in a number of conversations of dragging the US into a regional war. So there is also a national interest dimension here. And I don't think that the US under Mr. Trump is going to want to get pulled into more conflict in the region.
Simon, specifically now, the Abraham Accords, this was very important for Donald Trump under his previous presidency. Where do they stand right now? And of course, the normalization with Saudi Arabia. And what's changed? Has anything changed on Saudi Arabia's position on Palestinian statehood, and also, of course, the future of the occupied West Bank?
Yeah, so the Abraham Accords are hugely important for all the different parties involved. It symbolizes this growing shift towards normalization, and I guess Saudi Arabia is the crown jewel, if you will, of that normalization process. And I think Mr. Trump is very keen to make sure that he is the one to get that deal over the line. There have been moments where it looks likely, there's noise coming out of Washington, coming out of Israel, that a deal is possible. But I'm still not convinced that the Saudis are going to be happy with any type of deal that does not involve irreversible steps taken towards a Palestinian state. And that's not something that Mr. Trump can necessarily deliver. It's not something that Mr. Netanyahu will accept. It's not something his coalition partners will accept, and it's not something that the Israeli public on the whole, particularly after October 7 and the fears that have been bound up in that security, in that public consciousness, can necessarily accept either. So it's a really difficult thing, and I just can't see the Saudis accepting it as yet.
Thank you so much for your thoughts today here on the News Hour. That was Simon Mabon, Professor of International Politics at Lancaster University.